let me turn the light on. Hang on a second. Hi, everybody. It's Joe Cioffi here on this Wednesday, April 25th. Started a little bit late. Sorry about that. I guess I'm just trying to get back into the swing of things here. I had a very nice 4 days off, and as I discovered, the fact that the internet signal there was extremely weak, it made doing streams very difficult, especially when we wound up going fishing a little bit further north from where we were staying. So I was kind of glad, actually. It kept me off the internet, and it kept me off YouTube, and it kept me off Facebook for the most part, except for fishing pictures that I put up. And I got a nice, much-needed 4-day rest. I feel very much recharged, and I'm able to complete sentences again, which is a good thing. So I hope you guys are all doing well. I know the weather's been very slow. I picked a great set of days. I had blue sky and sunshine and hardly a cloud. I didn't think I saw a cloud for 4 days, which is highly unusual for this area of the Northeast, especially this time of year. So it's done. I'm back. And now we can look ahead to really what looks like a fairly quiet weather pattern overall. I mean, we're going to be dealing with the usual nonsense that we deal with in late April and early May. Still some temperature volatility in there. And we are going to see the month of May start off on the warm side here in my neck of the woods anyway, for the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic states. And being that April is going to turn out to be rather cold, probably finishing on the order of about 4.5 degrees or so below average, might in some places be in the top 10 coldest. Well, could use a bit of a break. So I think some warm weather is coming. First off, let me start off with what's going on at the moment. We do have a series of weather systems that we're dealing with, and each one is relatively weak because the way the upper atmosphere is set up, none of these systems in the upper atmosphere are phasing together. They all remain pretty much distinct entities, so the amount of energy that that they have is relatively limited. If we had these systems, if two of them were to phase somehow, say the one that's in the lower Mississippi Valley at the moment, you've got the system that's dropping down into the northern plains. I mean, if that were to phase into something, you could wind up with an important rain event. But they are destined to stay as separate features, and we have a lead feature here with low pressure in northeastern Virginia, as analyzed on the surface map from late this afternoon. And there's an onshore flow. We're still getting some downpours. We've got some patchy dense fog that has developed in areas in and around New Jersey into southern New England. So if you're traveling out of the local airports in my area, just be advised to check with your airline, because I'm sure you're going to have some issues. Now, between the system in the east, which is lifting northeastward, there is some drier air. So that gets in for Thursday. And then we're going to have another low that's going to follow the one that's on the coast now, pretty much in the same track. And that's going to take a track east and then turn northward up the coast, and probably going to get a round of rain on Friday. And after that, some dry air comes in to start the weekend. That's back up in the plains, and then we've got this next weather system that's dropping down. It's going to bring through a cold front here Saturday evening, and behind it, a quick shot of very chilly air for Sunday into Sunday night. And that is actually going to set off the warm-up that we are forecasting. By the way, just to give you an idea of just how quiet things are, and K-Dog, by the way, thank you for hitting Super Chat tonight. Really appreciate it very much. Thank you. Here's the latest map with the warnings and watches, and you can see there's not that much happening from this respect. You've got some flood watches up for northern New Hampshire and in through Maine. Looks like you have a freeze watch that is up through parts of central and southwest Kansas into northern Texas. A few small areas with red flag warnings. Believe it or not, in areas that just had a blizzard up in part, well, not in northern North Dakota anyway, but They got all that melting snow, so I guess it is bone dry up in that part of the country. You got some red flag warnings in through central Wyoming, and the West Coast is fairly quiet and fairly dry, so that's a good thing. The radars are relatively busy in the east. We've had some heavier downpours that have occurred, and we'll bring up the regional radar this evening. This is as of 6 o'clock Eastern time. And you do have a lot of heavy rain and showers moving through much of north central and northeastern New York State, and also in through southeastern New England and on up in through New Hampshire and Maine. So this is part of the reason why all of that is lifting up northward. So that's going to go into the area that we just indicated with the flood watch. There's still some residual downpours, though, as you go to the south. And it looks like a little cluster of thunderstorms just moved off the Virginia, North Carolina coast here. But that really is about it with respect to this particular system. And when we look at the radar on the U.S. view, we can see the rain area that's coming with system number 2, which is going to be for Friday for the east. And this is the shower rain that is in eastern Kansas, most of Missouri, down in through Arkansas and northeastern Texas. That's moving along. We don't have a lot of severe weather going on at all. In fact, from the standpoint of severe weather, it's been pretty quiet. In fact, I did pull up, and I got to check this. We've had 22 severe thunderstorm watches that have been posted so far during the severe storm season, and I got to look that up to see how that compares to past years, because it's certainly my observation from what we've seen for the last almost 2 months, March and April, that severe weather has been kind of on the low side. So I was digging around to see if I could get some information on that, but to me it seems that the amount of severe weather that we're seeing this season is relatively low. So I don't know whether that has to do with, it certainly has to do with the kind of pattern we've been in, but I'd like to take a look at that from a longer term perspective to see if anybody has, that deals with severe weather on a regular basis might have a better idea of what is actually going on. So why don't we take a look at where we're going with all this, and we're going to pull up. I'm going to start with the upper air tonight before we do anything. And it's also nice to see now as we look at some of these maps that we are seeing less and less in the way of the blue stuff as far as snow is concerned. We're seeing very little of it. But here's an illustration of the different shortwave troughs that we have at the moment. This was actually from last night. You see a shortwave off the Virginia coast. You see one, I'm sorry, this is actually for tonight. I'm sorry, 0Z Thursday, that's tonight. Okay, so we've got this shortwave that's off the Virginia coast. You've got another shortwave with an upper low sitting near Toronto. There's a system that is out to the west, now spreading rain in from southern Missouri, as we saw down into northeastern Texas. And then you've got yet another shortwave that runs from Lake Winnipeg southwestward into Montana. All of these stay separate, and this is why we're really not going to see too much going on with this. The system, the shortwave in the north lifts up and pulls the one up from the south for Friday, but there's another shortwave right behind it that keeps this from getting all that deep. And then that runs out, and then you see this moves along for Saturday. This is what brings down the shot of cold air that's going to come in for Sunday into Monday. I think Sunday in a lot of areas may have a tough time getting above 60. But as quickly as it moves in, it pulls out on Monday, and then here comes that big ridge in the eastern part of the U.S. that's going to build in strongly. And I think that it's probably going to keep things rather warm here through much, if not all, of next week. We may have to wait until Friday before some kind of weather front comes on through. And at that point, you can see here's the next trough on the GFS that moves through with a cold front probably late, very late next week. So we've got some very warm spring weather coming up. I think we're going to see 80s in many areas from Virginia on up into southern New England. Not so much on Tuesday, but I think Wednesday and Thursday and possibly Friday before that breaks down. In the meantime, as I said, we're going to have some volatility over the next few days going into this weekend with this shot of cooler air. So let's look at this from the standpoint of precip and who's getting what and where going back to tonight. So we'll pull up the surface map, and there's your low as it winds up in upstate New York and heads into Canada. That first low pulls out. Here's the next low, and you can see it really doesn't strengthen very much. Low lifts up for Friday with a period of rain. Looks like it's pretty fast, about 6 hours worth. And then you're going to have this cold front that's going to come through on Saturday, and with that a couple of showers late in the day. And there's your high that builds in behind it. Quick shot of cold air that comes down from Canada. We are going to see that chilly air for Sunday into Monday morning, and then the high goes off the Carolina coast. And let's start the warm up with the west winds beginning on Tuesday. And winds primarily stay west or northwest right through Wednesday and into Thursday. So I think sea breezes may only be of minimal impact here for a few days. I also want to point out, going back to look out what's happening in the west, we do have a system that's coming into the west this weekend with some rain and snows up in the Pacific Northwest. That takes its time translating eastward into the plains early next week, and maybe around the middle of next week we could have some severe weather issues in the middle and lower Mississippi Valley and in parts of Oklahoma and Texas. You can see it here as a weather front sets up, but at this point it doesn't really look overly impressive. And then we're going to get this front to come on through and bring in some showers again late next week. So you want that warm spring weather. You know, we just had 4 great days. Here come next week. We're going to have, I'm thinking, Monday should be fine. Tuesday, just Sunday chilly, but Monday's fine. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and maybe even into a good chunk of Friday. So much of next week, we're going to have some well-deserved nice spring weather to enjoy. Over to, let's take a look at what's going on in Europe, because I did notice that things were getting a bit more active here with respect to rain showers that we are seeing now after a bit of a dry spell. We're starting to get storms coming in off the Atlantic, and there's a wrapped up little low that moves into the English Channel and into England on Thursday and Thursday night into Friday, bringing some rain and also some action going into Spain and France, and even some snow showing up probably in the elevated areas in northern Spain and Portugal here. A little shading of blue. Rain across all of France and on up in through the Low Countries, and also through parts of Ireland and England as we move into the weekend. And low pressure just kind of rotates around, and you start getting, you know, more waves coming in off the Atlantic with rain. And you can see, by the way, here, I'm going to just roll it back. Here's a low. This is how it does weird stuff, and I'm trying to learn about this. But you got low pressure that forms over northern Africa, goes into the Mediterranean, and then it actually lifts up northwestward, which is kind of odd. You don't, you know, not looking at this from a regular basis, as I've pointed out several times. It's really interesting watching this all play out. But it looks like the pattern looks rather wet on it for the most part over the next couple of weeks over Europe and through England and Ireland. Not that it's wet continuously, but it is going to be, we are going to see rounds of rain that with these storms coming in off the Atlantic Ocean. So let me come back front and center and talk to you guys. It's, you know, I'm doing these YouTube live streams every day, and then not doing them for three days. I did, as I said, I attempted to do one, and I had such horrible signal issues streaming live, but all back back to normal. So going to come to the chat board here. So give me 1 second. As oh, and Anthony Orr from the other day, thanks also for hitting super chat. I really appreciate it very much. Jason Schaefer, you'd like to keep the fog. I've got obnoxious relatives flying home to LaGuardia tonight from Florida. Nice. I hope they're not watching this, Jason. Okay? And by the way, yeah, you make a point there, too, about you die without phone reception, honestly. I have to tell you, it did feel kind of strange at first. You get a little panicky. And then after a short time, I was like, oh my God, I'm free. So I don't have to be attached to my device. And it was nice. You really need to do that. We've become so accustomed to having our phones all the time, instant communication, doing everything. You know, we have to do it now or we have to do it yesterday, so it's got to get done. So when you're finally faced with the idea that you can actually relax for a little bit, it's a good thing, okay? And you can let it go. Yeah, Timothy Veltman, you getting the rain up there in upstate New York with this. Looks pretty wet on the radar, at least for a while longer tonight. And Iron Mine 10, we've got dense fog advisories for the South Shore of Long Island tonight. Let me see if they have it out for the coastal waters. They didn't actually put it up for the land, but let me just take a look in case they did something while I was... Hang on a second here, folks. No, it's up for the South Shore for the coastal waters, but not for the land areas. So just bear that in mind. And yeah, it's unfortunate your phone is your life and your life is your phone. It really is, and yet at the same time, when you do make an attempt to detach yourself from it, if you're successful, you actually get a certain sense of, and everybody really should do that every once in a while. Mystery Gamer, good to see you here, and DU Nan Kumar, nice to see you guys, see you both. It's been a while, and again, K-Dog, thank you very much for hitting Super Chat tonight. Just trying to think if there's anything else going on of consequence. There really isn't. So I think we'll call it. We'll stop it here at this point. A little on the short side, but you know what? When there's not much going on, there's not much going on. So we'll save it for a time when we have to spend an hour doing a live stream talking about all the active weather we are having, which is not going to be the case at the moment, or you know, except for the volatility over the weekend. Looks like things are going to be relatively contained. All right, folks. So let's leave it here. The Joe and Joe Show, which has been not happening for the last 4 or 5 days. We'll be back tonight at 9:15 on Facebook, so you can go to my Facebook page, Meteorologist Joe Cioffi, or Joe Rayo's Facebook page, Joe Rayo Weather, and you can you know, join us there at 9:15, and we'll talk a bit more about my trip and where we're going with all of this. I'm sorry, Israel, what was your question? If you could just repeat. Let's see. You got to 67 today. Lakewood, New Jersey reached a high of 88. Wouldn't be shocked if we get to 90 with a strong southeast ridge. Well, you know what? It's not impossible. I certainly think we're going to see 80s, and I wouldn't be surprised if on one of those days, especially with that west or northwest isobar that's set up, that's the west-northwest isobars that are setting up, that's going to be dry, and we're probably going to see temperatures climb well up into the 80s at some point. Would not shock me in the least. So I'm assuming that is what your question is, what you were addressing, and I would agree with you. Would not be surprised if we see some places well up into the 80s and maybe even the first 90-degree readings showing up later next week in some places. Okay, so the Joe and Joe Show tonight at 9:15. Do tune in if you can. Otherwise, back to doing normal Facebook posts on my Facebook page and on my website, meteorologistjoecioffi.com. Angry Ben has NYC, New York City covered on nycweathernow.com. Have a great evening, everybody. Thanks for being here. I thank you for asking about my time off. I really, really needed it. I had a great time fishing, even though didn't catch any fish, but my pal Howie caught 3 browns. My pal Phil did not catch any fish. My pal John didn't catch any fish, but we all had a great 3+ days away, which everybody needs to do every now and again, just to recharge your batteries. Take care, and we will either see you later or we'll see you tomorrow.